Shalom to all our viewers around the world. This is TV7 with Middle East Review right here in Jerusalem. It's been a long summer, but we have all come back from vacations. And here with me again, the one and only Eran Lerman, Colonel Reserve, doctor, and one who really needs no introduction, but one of the greatest minds of diplomacy and foreign policy, which is coming to mind today because, or this week, because we have seen in the past few days almost a miracle. So what a month or 2 month difference can make. So I believe that it is quite obvious for today that the main subject of our talk will be the return of the hostages of Israel. This is the most important thing for us, for a healing process for our society and our nation. Of course, the ceasefire in Gaza, which would lead, hopefully, to a much greater vision implementation of the Middle East, according to Trump's plan. And this week also we have had the peace conference in Sharm, presided by President Trump, Sisi, the president of Egypt, and 22 or more Arab presidents, European, and this is really a heavyweight in terms of hoping for a good sign for continuation. Of course, there are many caveats. There are many, I would say, obstacles along the way. But let me start, Eran. First, tell us your overview of this special week that we have been witnessing, and then we will talk about resolution of what should be done, can it be done, and the different protagonists playing here. New one like Turkey is coming in. Is it good? Is it bad? What are the pros and cons? And of course, one more thing that we have to remember is the internationalization or the risk of internationalization of the process. Israel has always been against it. We were always against going into a peace conference because we said we would be overwhelmed, we would be outnumbered, everybody will just pounce on us. We have seen the Madrid conference back in 1991. Seems like it's an agency.
That was a very, very well pre-cooked affair.
Exactly. With Bush
the
Senior,
Baker spending nine shuttles in the region to let's say, bake it to precision.
Right. We needed the baker to bake it to precision, but since then, not much.
And if I may,
go ahead.
I may use the joke on Jim Baker, what we are looking at right now is still half-baked.
Yes.
But let's first of all use a term that I think goes back to this great Prussian strategist Clausewitz, and then relearned by those who follow his mode of analysis. In strategy, in war, in conflict, there's something called a culmination point. You use your military, you use your force, and at a certain point, any further use of that force becomes counterproductive. The cost
diminishing returns
grows and the returns diminish.
Eran, is this the opposite of a fatigue point, which is also discussed in the annals of war, that sometimes the two parties come to a fatigue point, so they are both ready for compromises on each side?
That pertains when you have roughly equal forces, nations in conflict, like Israel and Egypt in the 1970s. We were tired, they were tired, we were roughly equal in capabilities in different ways. Israel is small but strong, Egypt is very large, but we have our own position in international affairs, but they built their stature through the gesture of coming to... Basically, there was a piece of fatigue negotiated between equals. The story here is different. Hamas has been defeated. Militarily, they've been destroyed to a large extent, although not absolutely. But for Israel, the cost of continuing the campaign in Gaza to the last Hamas man standing became much too costly, and in terms of Israel international standing, in terms of internal tensions within Israel, in terms of the question of the hostages, which is dear to the heart, was very dear to the heart of so many in Israel. So we came past actually the culmination point in the summer, more or less in the summer of 2025. And from there, we basically needed some external intervention to help, let's say, translate this realization into a new phase, a new strategy. And here, of course, we cannot overestimate the immense impact of the manner in which President Trump does business. Abrupt, dramatic, overstated. This is not an end to 3,000 years of conflict. With all really due respect.
Interestingly enough, Iran today, this week, one of Israel's pundits, you know him, Raviv Drucker,
yes,
even compared Trump to Kissinger. Can you believe that?
Well,
this is euphoria. This is what we call euphoria. Yeah.
Trump is an optimist.
Exactly.
Kissinger acted out of deep historical pessimism,
right,
and very, very different propositions. But still, the bottom line is that he intervened, and he did something very significant. He brought together this Israeli realization that we've come to the culmination point, the need of what I keep calling the camp of stability in the region, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, Jordan, and so on, for the war to end because it has a destabilizing effect on their governments, and the interest of the backers of Hamas, namely the Qataris and the Turks, to ingratiate themselves with this administration, which they've been doing in various ways, because they have a much wider range of interests in the region. We need to talk about Syria, about Lebanon, about how the Turks and the Qataris are playing their long game in other parts of the region. But he managed to bring them all to the same table. In fact, he generated something which is unprecedented, which a group of 8 Muslim, not just Arab countries, of which 4 belong to the camp of stability, Egypt and Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the Emirates, of which 3 have diplomatic relations with Israel, peace with Israel. Saudi Arabia, let's say carefully, not yet, but all belong to the same orientation. But also Turkey and Qatar, Turkey non-Arab but very deeply involved in the region. And then he brings in 2 extra players who are until now have been very, very rarely involved in any of this, namely the Pakistanis, with whom he has been building a relationship that has cost him a rift, a problematic one, I should say, with Modi's India.
Yes.
And the Indonesians. And here is something very significant. Everything connects. Prabowo Subianto speaks at the UN General Assembly, says the word shalom in Hebrew, talks about the need to ensure Israel's security. Unprecedented language.
Unprecedented, like a dream come true, yeah.
From the leader of the largest Muslim nation in the world, in fact, the 4th largest nation in the world, population-wise, just below India, China. No, just below the United States, of course. India and China are far ahead.
Indonesia, it's an interesting country. Now, they have been waiting on the wings for more than 30 years. You remember when Rabin came out of the Oslo from Washington, he stopped in Jakarta meeting with, then it was Suharto. Indonesia
and we've had a security relationship.
Yes.
Over the years, and moreover, the dominant political force in Indonesian life is the Nahdlatul Ulama, or NU movement, which is very much opposed to the totalitarian interpretations of Islamism, of Islam, the Islamism of the Muslim Brotherhood, and so on, and then of course Al-Qaeda and Daesh and their likes.
And the Ayatollahs on the Shia side, yeah.
Yes, and I've heard Wahid, when he was president, speak to AJC when I was the man in Jerusalem, and he came to Washington for the annual conference, and he spoke in his wheezing voice. He had emphysema, but he was very difficult to understand, but he spoke in a very forceful language against totalitarianism, against 9/11 and all that 9/11 represented, in the name of NU and of Indonesia. So this is a very important development which could lead to an actual breakthrough, among other things, because there is a quid pro quo involved. The Indonesians have something that we have something that the Indonesians need, namely the key to the door of the OECD. Joining the OECD is by consensus of all members. We managed to slide in May 2010.
Together
a
with
week later, we would not have been admitted.
Yes,
You know why?
of course.
Because of the Mavi Mama.
Of course.
And the Turks would have tripped us up.
course.
But we came in just in time, and we're
Sometimes you
in.
need luck, yes.
Yeah, you need some luck sometimes in diplomacy, as well as in war.
That's what Napoleon
Said,
demanded
wanted
from
from
his
his generals.
generals. Only luck, not competence.
But at the end of he had competence enough.
Yeah.
But the point was that we managed to get in, and once we are in, Indonesia cannot come in without our consent, and it will. And so the question of relations between Israel and Indonesia have a practical side, but also a very powerful ideological and symbolic side. So all of this is wrapped together by Trump in his meeting with these 8 nations in New York, and he brings essentially their consent to the table in this meeting with Netanyahu, in which Netanyahu signed on to what was originally the 21-point plan, and then one point was dropped because it was implemented before the ceremony with the apology to Qatar. And then that's a fascinating plan, because the hostage exchange is just the beginning of a much larger thing. Now, what the conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, with all due respect, is not really a peace conference. The
Right.
fact that Trump chose to give it that name.
But I've noticed, Ran, it's an important point.
It's
Trump
typical,
has
but
this
still.
ability to create reality just by word of mouth. He is like, I think in a way, he compelled Hamas to accept the plan, because when Hamas was kind of iffy, yes, but he immediately said Hamas accepted the plan. And Israel accepted the plan. So he made, these facts on the ground, so they had no choice. I call it like the Corrales. He put Israel and the Hamas and all the other protagonists in the
That
region.
used to
in the
be
Corrales that going
Arik
right-
Sharon's
Yes,
old
exactly.
phrase.
There was no escape.
Now, but the key, of course, is in the details of the next stage.
Okay, this
Because
is a good,
the
yeah.
Sharm el-Sheikh is not a peace conference. You cannot make peace without Israel at the table. What it is, essentially, it's a donors conference. Who is going to give money, manpower, soldiers for the implementation of what is already clearly outlined in the 20 points. And here is something quite significant. Qatar and Turkey, whatever designs they may harbor for the future of Gaza, have signed on to a document which clearly denounces Hamas, demands that they would demilitarize and of course, give up the political control of Gaza. They are willing to, that's a point Hamas has been willing to concede for some time, that they will not run Gaza, so some kind of technocrat government would do that. but they have been adamant about refusing to disarm, and they may still try to latch on to their military capability. But Israel now has a different kind of leverage. I don't think we are going towards a resumption of fighting. But while medicines and food will flow in under the 20-point agreement or text, reconstruction in the fullest sense, housing, infrastructure, roads, schools, whatever needs to be rebuilt for life to go back to normal in this demolition site, as Trump calls it, that the war has left, reminiscent of Berlin in '45.
So this is a great leverage that Israel has.
That cannot happen if Hamas can take the concrete and iron and use it again to build the tunnels.
Also, the beauty of this agreement, the 20 points from Israel's point of view, that Hamas lost its only leverage, which is the hostages. One phase, one fell swoop, and that puts Israel in a great advantage for the future, even for the near future. But Iran, before we go into the larger region and a great vision of peace, not just between Israel and Arab countries, but with Muslim countries, as you mentioned, especially in Indonesia, we have to complete the first phase. And you mentioned dismantling Hamas, including the tunnels.
Second phase. The first phase was the
right.
hostage
Let's
situation.
say okay, but yeah.
The second phase is a long transition.
Right. The first phase already done.
Transforming Gaza.
So I'm looking now at the next two phases.
Transformative in terms of what needs to be done.
But the composition of this international force, peacekeeping force, whatever you want to call it, it's not a UN force, which is good because UN has failed miserably in the region since
and this is
first
clearly
day.
not what Trump has in mind.
But do you see Qatari or even Turkish soldiers in this force? Because this could be quite damaging, as they are the ones who will be siding with Hamas. So, for instance, some people say, okay, we may have the same arrangement as we have with the ceasefire with Hezbollah. That means Israel can continue to self-defense, and if Israel sees any threat from Hezbollah, we can take it out. But here in Gaza, if we want to take it out, and we will have to go and take, let's say, have an agreement.
As we do with the Palestinian Authority now.
Yeah, but here we will need here we will need, let's say, Trump's approval. And on the other side, we will have Qatar and Turkey, which will tell him, no, it's not really so. They will try to round the corner, and this can lead into a new form of Hamas military build-up. How do you avoid that?
Well, it very much depends on the composition of the force on the ground, the composition of the board that Trump himself has.
He's the chairman of the board.
He's going to be the chairman
and
of.
Under him is Tony Blair.
Tony Blair, who knows the region very well.
And very much respected here, yeah.
Respected and very clearly committed to uprooting Hamas. Even the countries that have, to the deep dismay of Israel, declared in favor of a Palestinian state, have in the same breath said Hamas must be disarmed and taken out of the equation. They understand that these two things cannot stand together. Right. So how do you go from now? What are the levers that Israel has? Well, it has three significant levers. One is that Trump is the moving force behind all this, and he is clearly committed to taking Hamas out. The second is that Israel still retains control of more than 50%, militarily, of more than 50% of the Gaza Strip.
That's where this is what is called the yellow line.
The yellow line. So any withdrawal further from the yellow line will be dependent upon the degree of assured arrangements that we have, a protocol that we may have with the IS, International Stabilization Force, and with the JITA as to how and when and who takes over when we leave. And the third, and in many ways the most powerful lever, is that we cannot allow reconstruction to go ahead. All the cement and iron and whatever that would otherwise go into Hamas military infrastructure, we cannot allow this to go in without Hamas being out of the equation. So we have leverages in the game that now begins.
Yes, incentive also for Turkey and Qatar. You know, many Turkish construction companies are vying. They have a lot of money to be gained there.
We know much of Israel was built by Turkish companies.
Exactly, including our airport, yes. So maybe this is a plus side that, you know, with Turkey having such an incentive, maybe they will lean on Hamas.
And the Turks, and here we go into the broader picture, the Turks and the Qataris have other fish to fry.
Yes.
Particularly in Syria, where Turkey tries to position itself as the sponsor of the new regime. Of course, Israel has its own reservations about this and about the structure of political balance between Damascus and the regions and minorities and all of these very important issues that are under active negotiation between Israel and Syria. There is now a channel of negotiations, and that's... there have been meetings at
I would say that
the ministerial level with the Syrians. These are unprecedented events.
I would say the only barrier for the Turks to have a full control of Syria is Israel.
So
they would need to come to terms with Israel.
And the American position on certain issues, such as the autonomy for the Kurds in Rojava and of course our own intervention in behalf of
Isn't it amazing with the Middle East that the Iranians are out of the equation, the Russians are out of the equation? This is all part, I mean, we don't have time to talk about it today, all part of the consequences from the war of 7th of October. It is amazing.
And specifically the wars that Israel launched against Hezbollah.
And Iran.
We went from a mid-intensity conflict that Hezbollah launched to a high-intensity conflict that we launched.
On our terms, yes.
On our terms.
Yes.
And of course, we had the round with Iran. It's even bigger than that. I keep going back to this concept of the CRINC, the China, Russia, Iran, North Korea axis.
Which also got a blow out of this entire...
And we hit this block at its weakest point, and neither China nor Russia nor North Korea were able to do much about it on behalf of the Iranians. And that is, I think, a very significant moment in the overall conflict for the future of the international strategic balance. That we did not get too much credit for all of this from our European friends is a different story. But for us now, a very important point is that with all due respect to the role of Qatar and the Turks, it is for us very significant that Egypt has taken once again the front seat, hosting the hostage negotiations, hosting this Trump's conference, because in the internal game between the camp of Muslim Brotherhood supporters, Turkey, Qatar, some elements in Libya and so on, and of course Hamas itself, and on one side, and the anti-Muslim Brotherhood forces. On the other, Israel is very clearly on the same side, in the same camp as the Egyptians, the Jordanians, the Emiratis, the South.
Which has become very powerful one, because Egypt at the front, as you mentioned, Iran, Saudi Arabia backing it behind. Of course, on the flank, we have Jordan and Emirates and other countries.
We have to say a very important thing that is sort of people have taken for granted. We've been in a bloody war for 2 years with terrible consequences for the people in Gaza, not because we wanted it, this whole genocide business as a false accusation of the worst kind, but we did have to fight in a densely populated area with terrible consequences. And yet, none of the Arab peace partners of Israel has taken the step back from the peace commitment. And Sisi just recently reaffirmed it in very clear language, and he praised Sadat for his vision, not only in the war of 473, but also as a peacemaker. Morocco continues to do business with us, even at the security level. Egypt, Jordan, the Emiratis, Bahrain, none of them walked back. And that's a very, very important point of departure for the game that is now afoot for the future of the region.
It's amazing how little Israel, on the map at least, we're very small, very big in other ways, but in size we are small. How small Israel really lifted, the heavy weight and changed almost single-handedly the entire architecture, the geopolitical situation in the region, which not only benefits us and our first and foremost ally in the United States, but also benefit our European friends who unfortunately did not appreciate it, and they fell prey to Hamas propaganda.
At least I would say that on Iran, we did get
on Iran we did,
support.
yes. But I think this is all the time we have. Many changes, and we will further discuss it because we have not covered really what's happening in Iran, in Libya, in Sudan, many, many more things that affect the Middle East. But today, I think we can be quite hopeful. Thank you so much for watching Middle East Review, TV7 in Jerusalem. Shalom, and see you soon.
For more of TV7 Israel's productions and editorials, we invite you to visit our website at www.tv7israelnews.com.
Israel has launched operations
on Vladimir Putin.
helping Iran develop. We have logic, we have rationale, we understand how the system operates.